It's Dodgers against Twins, and Shohei Ohtani is taking the mound. He's enjoyed a fantastic start to the year, but unfortunately, one small issue has begun to appear. His longtime catcher, Will Smith, is currently on the IL. That means rookie Dalton Rushing is behind the plate instead. And unfortunately, Ohtani and Rushing don't appear to be fully in sync. Here's how their numbers compare side by side. And it's pretty obvious that Ohtani looks far more comfortable pitching to the veteran Smith. That's probably not too surprising. Competing with Smith is difficult. But this goes further than statistics because Ohtani also appears to have some trust concerns with Rushing, particularly when missed ABS challenges are involved. We first noticed this 2 weeks ago in this Pirates game. Ohtani wanted to challenge 2 pitches during this important at-bat, but Rushing told him not to. Then the hitter eventually drove this double, forcing Ohtani out of the game. The Pirates came back and won. After the game, Ohtani was asked about those missed ABS challenges, and this was his response. "I usually allow the catchers to make that decision, but looking back, I think I could have used a few challenges." And during the first inning of this game, we're going to see almost the exact same situation. Ohtani wants to challenge this pitch, but once again, Rushing tells him, "No, don't do it." But take another look. That pitch would have been a strike. So Ohtani is trying to remain calm. He wants to follow his catcher's judgment, but you can sense the frustration beginning to grow. Then, later in the inning, Ohtani and Rushing get crossed up on another pitch. So already, the tension is building slightly for Ohtani as we move into the second inning. And to open the second, Ohtani gives up this single to Caratini, before coming back to strike out Royce Lewis. So, there's one runner on with one out. Brooks Lee is next. And the key thing about Brooks Lee is that he has serious trouble against off-speed pitches. So Rushing says, "Okay, he struggles with off-speed. Let's open with a splitter." And that's an excellent pitch for strike 1. They follow it with a fastball for strike 2. So, it's an 0-2 count. They return to the splitter, but Ohtani misses his spot badly. Now the count is 1-2. Rushing says, "How about going back to the fastball?" This one misses outside. So now the count moves to 2-2. Rushing says, "Okay, let's return to the splitter." But Lee sends it straight back up the middle, and the ball gets through for a base hit. And yes, that's another missed spot with the splitter. We can clearly tell that wasn't where Ohtani intended to throw it. Remember, his previous splitter also missed its location. We know Lee struggles with off-speed pitches, so Rushing's thinking is understandable, but Ohtani later explained that, at this point, he quote didn't feel convicted about what was being called. And that probably connects directly to what happens against the next hitter, Tristan Gray. On the first pitch, remember, Ohtani has now missed with 2 straight splitters. Rushing begins the at-bat by asking for another splitter. And once again, Ohtani doesn't hit his spot. The pitch is called a strike. Rushing wanted the ball down, but it stayed up. That's now 3 poorly located splitters in a row. So what does Rushing ask for next? Another splitter. And Gray sends this one into play for a single. Now the bases are loaded. And in fairness to Rushing, Tristan Gray is another hitter who has trouble against off-speed pitches. So on paper, using the splitter makes sense. But at the same time, Ohtani has now thrown 4 subpar splitters in a row without making an adjustment. So Ohtani is basically thinking, "Dude, what are we doing here?" At this point, Ohtani is clearly getting frustrated. The bases are loaded with 1 out. Ryan Kreidler comes to the plate. And as Rushing selects the first pitch using his pitchcom, he intends to call a breaking ball, but accidentally presses 2 buttons on the pitchcom. He selects breaking ball and fastball. Unfortunately, Ohtani only hears fastball. So the pitch flies right past Rushing and reaches the backstop. 1 run scores. The other 2 runners advance, and yes, that's exactly what happened. We can clearly see that Rushing was expecting a breaking ball, while Ohtani heard fastball. And man, Ohtani absolutely threw a fastball. That pitch reached 101.7, which is, no joke, the fastest pitch Ohtani has ever thrown in his career. So yeah, I think Ohtani might be slightly angry. And once again, the 2 simply got crossed up. Remember, this already happened earlier in the game. This is now their second pitch mix-up. Only this time, a run scores because of it. And we can clearly see Ohtani is absolutely pissed. So pitching coach Mark Prior says, "All right, we have to settle things down." He walks to the mound for a quick conversation. They talk it through. "All right, everything is okay. Let's calm down. Here we go. Okay, here we go. 10 count. And that's a perfectly located pitch for a strike. Excellent execution immediately following the mound visit. We are so back." Then the next pitch is called low for a ball. But Ohtani wants the challenge. And look at Rushing. He's saying, "No, no, no, don't challenge. That's low." But here we go. The challenge is underway. And Ohtani is correct. Oh my goodness. This inning has become completely wild again. And it almost seems like Rushing was prepared for another pitch. You can see his framing is slightly off. Ohtani is basically saying, "I know that's a strike." And watch how forcefully he taps his head. That's crazy. Remember, Ohtani already believes Rushing has cost him 3 challenges recently. One happened earlier in this game, so this time, he's not waiting for permission. Rushing is certain the pitch is low, but it's actually inside the zone for a strike. And look at Ohtani's reaction afterward. He simply gives Rushing a small nod. It's almost like he's saying, "Yep, I'm Shohei Ohtani. Don't forget it." So the pitch is confirmed as a strike, but Kreidler eventually hits a single here. And the 2 runners who advanced on the passed ball come around to score. That makes it 3-1 Twins. Ohtani strikes out the next batter to close the inning. And after delivering that pitch, Ohtani walks into the dugout and heads toward the tunnel, while Rushing quietly follows behind him. Then, inside the tunnel, Ohtani tells Rushing that he'll be handling the pitch calling from this point forward. Take a look at Ohtani's comments after the game. He said, quote, "There's really a couple ways of communicating. One is by words, but the other way is by example and just taking charge and showing Rush what kind of pitching style I'm capable of." That is a seriously badass quote. And after their conversation, we can see Shohei immediately walk over and install PitchCom on his sleeve. So yeah, he's definitely the captain now. And what happens to Rushing after that conversation? Well, the moment they return from the tunnel, Freddie Freeman walks directly over and has a calm conversation with him. Rushing just stands there, listening and taking everything in. Then pitching coach Mark Prior comes over to speak with him. Eventually, manager Dave Roberts walks across and puts his arm around Rushing. And for his part, Rushing admitted that he felt awful about the entire inning. Here's what he said after the game. "I didn't do a great job. Start to finish. It was pretty embarrassing. Thankfully he's as good as he is, and he could take control of a game. Yeah, it was pretty embarrassing." Now, you're probably ready to go after Rushing in the comments, and I think a lot of that criticism is understandable. But I will say there's one moment where I believe Rushing made the right call. I actually think he was correct to wave off the challenge during the first inning. It was the first inning, nobody was on, and it was a 10 count. Objectively, that's an extremely low-leverage situation for using a challenge. So even though the pitch caught the zone, I think saving the challenge was the smarter decision there. But during the second inning, I'm completely on Ohtani's side. There were 2 runners on with a 1-1 count. With both challenges still available, that's absolutely a strong moment to challenge the call. So this is definitely a learning experience for Rushing. And the final question you're probably asking is, what happens during the rest of Ohtani's start once he begins calling his own pitches? Well, we see him return for the third inning. He's clearly choosing his own pitches now. And that third inning goes incredibly well. Bam, 101 on the fastball. Bam, gets him with the sweeper. Then bam, puts him away with the splitter. Ohtani strikes out the side. And overall, he goes on to retire 10 of the next 12 batters he faces. And oh, by the way, Ohtani's fastball averaged 99.8 on the day, the highest average fastball velocity he's ever produced in his career. So yeah, this is definitely a fascinating situation for the Dodgers. Rushing clearly has some adjustments to make because Shohei should never stop being Shohei.